Hello! So, if you were a closeted queer boy or a twink-obsessed tween girl, you were obsessed with Twilight in the early 2010s.
I know what you for.
Like me. And before you come for me, no, I did not read the fucking books. I tried, but I couldn't get through the first book because I can't read. Anyway, a while ago, I got this bright idea to do a Edward plus Jacob ship comic. I was fully writing a script and everything and decided to design the characters first. I did a few Edward sketches in my sketchbook, but I took it the farthest with Jacob. This is the first practice sheet I did of Jacob. It's a little chopped and screwed, but trust me, it gets better.
And eggs, and sugar, and flour, and it makes a sheet cake, and it eats the sheet cake alone, and then it gets better.
Better than you, bitch.
So, I'm going to talk about the design of the character and the version of Twilight I was going to create. First and foremost, this was going to be a super
gay
ass comic. Tonally, it was going to be PG-13 with a tinge of R-rated buffoonery, because I was planning on making them really horny for each other. I'm not saying they was going to Pound Town or anything, but it was definitely going to get steamy. Basically, I was just going to tell the story as if Bella and Jacob were kind of the same person. So the story was mainly going to focus on Jacob. I was also planning on changing all of their names. It was kind of starting to feel a little too much like an original story and less fan fiction. So I changed Jacob's name to Bo Black. I chose Bo because for some reason I had this idea of him being on the archery club or something. I wanted him to have like a cool bow and arrow as a weapon. I also love a statement / sentimental / necklace / choker / pendant situation. So I gave him this tribal choker with a moon on it. I want the moon symbol to appear a lot for him. Character wise, this version of Jacob / Bo Black is probably a bit more carefree and focused. Certainly less of a lover boy. I think he would be way more interested in school and learning in general. He's also way less physical and aggressive, but still passionate and outspoken. My initial idea was to not have him know about his supernatural nature, but I think I would want that to be a bit more complicated. Since he didn't spend the majority of his life in Forks, I feel like he would be slightly disconnected from that part of his culture, especially since his gifts appear later in adolescence. So coming back to Forks will be strange and transformative in so many ways for him. So here I'm doing line art and coloring a gym class version of him. Please do not come for me about his tiny feet. Also, in my version of Twilight, Jacob / Bo will never, ever, ever cut his hair.
Let me give her a new style, a new hair dip, a new cut, a new color.
I also think he's feminine in a tomboy way. Like, I feel like my version of him would be stomping in dirt and mud in a really nice outfit and shoes, and a lot of tight t-shirts and braided pigtails. I also started to write a script for the comic. It's only 2 pages. I did this a while ago, so I'm gonna read the whole thing right now and interject with thoughts and what I would change. I'm also thinking about doing the voices for the characters' lines. It is one of my random and various dreams to do voice acting. My voice isn't strong, but I like to play around with it, so I'll give it a go. So you know how in the beginning of the first Twilight, Bella and her dad Charlie are driving into town? That's kind of what I'm doing with Edward / Eddie and Jacob / Bo. The start of the comic, or what I typed out, is Edward pulling into a gas station to pump gas. He is accompanied by Rosalie / Rosie, who in my story is a bit more bratty and dominant, and certainly a
lesbian
and misandrist. Very much in your vibes. So that's where the 2 pages start. Now I'm just gonna straight up read the script. Also, I titled it The Sun and the Moon. I was going for a yin and yang vibe. Edward is pulling over into a gas station. He gets out to pump gas. I imagine him driving a 2-seater, maybe a vintage Mustang, very Damon Salvatore. Rosalie from the passenger seat. Hurry up, Edward. It smells like ass out here. I feel like this line really sets the tone for the story, and specifically Rosie. Edward. I'm moving as fast as I can, Rosie, he says, taking his time to get out and pump. Rosalie, putting on chapstick angrily. Whatever. You idiot, she says playfully. Now, while I kind of think that line is a little corny, I do stand by it, and I feel like this is how I want them to interact. Especially Rosie. I feel like she's very blunt and sarcastic, and maybe a little derogatory to the men in her life. Edward puts the pump in the tank and lets the gas pump fill it up. As he looks off into the distance, the faint smell of a wolf catches his attention. This is where Jacob/Bo comes in. When I wrote that last sentence, that's when I really got into the script. Edward, turning his attention toward the store and moving for the door. I'll be right back. Edward hesitates to open the door. Then he smells the scent again and goes inside to follow it. He tracks the scent, following the boy it's coming from, but only catches glimpses of his neck and his back, and the long brown hair piled on top of his head. Edward, moving in front to Jacob, in front of the soda coolers, he stares at the young wolf in a questioning way. What?
What did our knives?
Oh my God, who wrote this?
Basically, Edward just walked up to Jacob like he owed him money, pinning his back against the soda coolers. Jacob, looking up into Edward's eyes confusingly. Are your eyes red, mate? Jacob says after a moment of silence. I imagine him saying this like while leaning in and lifting a finger pointing at his eyes. I also know for a fact he said this with a smirk, which makes Edward blush. Wait, I'm not sure they can blush. Whatever. Blush is a state of mind. Edward grunts and turns his face away. Go. Edward grunts. Jacob, trying to get another glimpse at Edward. What? Are you okay? Jacob moves to put his hand on Edward's shoulder, but Edward catches it. Jacob/Bo definitely thinks Edward is high or on something. Edward grunts and pins Jacob to the coolers by his hand, lightly lifting him off his feet. Don't touch. I would probably scratch this line. Edward stares into the young wolf's eyes again, and somehow he is hypnotized, or something like it. He can smell the earth, the grass, and he can feel the sun on his skin and the hot blood in his veins. It's nothing like he's ever felt before. Jacob lets out a stunted growl, and Edward is brought out of the trance. I'm telling you, I wrote this and I swear I thought I was literally a Shakespearean genius. There's lore, angst, foreshadowing, and it's just juicy to me. This is definitely the bonding and binding moment for both of them. Also, visually, I would do this like one page of a zigzag between a close-up of Edward and Jacob's eyes, and then a lot of panels of nature scenes and blood and veins and the moon and the sun. Edward, what are you? He asks, half rhetorically. Jacob, what? Jacob says, half scared and half intrigued. I feel like this is the part where Jacob/Bo gets these curious feelings about Edward/Eddie. And in my comic, Bo is definitely very
Gay!
So I feel like this conventionally attractive man putting so much focus on him has got him interested. Edward lets Jacob down and holds onto his arm for a second longer before letting him go completely. Edward steps closer to Jacob and takes in a scent completely by getting his nose as close as he can to the nape of Jacob's neck. There's a warm, tingling feeling in the pit of Edward's stomach. They are feeling it. I like how fast nothing is actually happening, like it set the tone for the rest of the story, but nothing actually really happened. They are now connected, but they know nothing about each other, and that's what the rest of the story would be about, amongst other things. Rosalie, swinging the glass door open. Edward, move your ass. We gotta go. My Rosie being an icon. Edward, moving away from Jacob slowly while keeping his eyes dead set on Jacob's. I'm coming, Rosie. He shouts so his sister can hear him. I don't know why I made them shout. They both have superhuman hearing, so... Rosalie, ugh, well, hurry, Rosalie says, disgusted, before storming off to the car. Jacob, looking from the door back to the boy named Edward standing in front of him. You know, a ginger ale will clear that, makes a motion at his face. Right up. I don't know why I wrote that. I guess Jacob/Bo thought he had pink eye, and I'm black, so it's kind of a joke because black people think ginger ale can fix anything. Edward stares at the boy with a cold face, looking him up and down like he could be an afternoon snack. A smirk spreads across the cold one's face. Baby, I was feeling it, honey. I was on my Emily Dickinson shit. Jacob. A blush and a shiver spreads through Jacob. And before he could even blink, the dark and tall, pale boy was gone. Jacob stood there for a second with a furrowed brow and the faintest of smiles on his face before he could move on and continue his shopping. I know he was so confused, but also squealing and kicking his feet. Rosalie, in the passenger seat as Edward drive off. What was that about? She definitely heard everything that happened in that store. Edward, looking at the road. Nothing, just shopping.
Just a lie. Like, look at how quick she lied.
Rosalie, with a disbelieving grin on her face. Unless they were selling blood bags in there, I highly doubt you did any shopping. But if you don't want to tell me what that was really about, I'll just ask Alice. She says smugly. This bitch clocked his tea bad. Edward. Fine, Edward. I met a wolf, he says with a smile on his face. They continued driving into Forks. It's only 7 pages, but I'm kind of proud of it. I really like the way it sounds. After this, I was gonna pick the story back up with Jacob/Bo driving into Forks with his father or sister. I'm not sure where I was going with this part, which is why I stopped writing. I really enjoyed reading that script for y'all. Please let me know if y'all actually want me to make the comic. I'm trying to get into my YouTube bag, so I'm mostly doing YouTube stuff, but if y'all want to see it, I can illustrate the script. I haven't talked much about the actual art, but I think it's self-explanatory. The first was just a character sheet where I was playing around with the design of the character, and the second was a character analysis of sorts, detailing his physical appearance and what's in his pocket. I really like the second one, but I think his face is really wonky. Now, this goofy little piece is inspired by this post and these cute little end of episode character analysis from the Boyfriends webtoon. It's not my favorite. It definitely had its trials and tribulations. The little outfit I put him in is so silly. I fully think he would never wear this, but I think this is funny. But more seriously, this really is not the vibe of the character. The body is off. I don't love the hairline situation, and the jewelry is just way too campy for him. I like the way he looks, but this isn't the vibe. On the side are his personality traits. He is a wolf/shifter. I should have just put werewolf. I put down 16, but maybe I should make him 17 or 18. I don't know. My version of him is definitely a science geek, like a big wildlife and plant life science geek with an interest in bones. Maybe he would become an animal bone doctor. He enjoys history, not Euro-American history. He enjoys the history of other cultures and his own. He loves hair products. He's definitely on his sacred journey. I think he definitely gets into like at-home ancestral and cultural hair care stuff. I initially wrote flower knowledge, but I changed it to plant knowledge. He gets deep into plant lore. And ATCBB is his big addiction to cold-blooded boys, which is really just for Edward. But I think that's also his type. Emo/punk. Boys who listen to heavy metal and are pale and tall and have large veins. Also my type, but we won't discuss that. I found out Jacob is a Capricorn, and I'm gonna dig into that. Jacob is emotional in the movies, but I think it comes off a little aggressive to me. I would make him a little less aggro. I also changed the color scheme of this piece like 20 different times, and I'm kind of over it. So, let me know whether or not you enjoyed this video by commenting or liking, and if you're feeling generous, maybe subscribe. And if you want to see the comic, comment down below. Be blessed and have a good day. Make art, post your art, and stay campalicious. Ta-ta.
I've been waiting to say this all year, and I'm gonna say it. And this is a good time. Get to stepping. Step